comes to MS, multiple sclerosis. The CBD oil works as an anti-inflammatory, whether that's taken internally or whether that's rubbed on the skin. But right now, and this is something that we need to educate everybody on, is the fact that that in and of itself doesn't tell the story at all. It's the research, it's the development that needs to go along with the CBD oil that it may not be. It may not be just CBD. It may be CBD in conjunction with THC and CBG or any of these other 85 cannabinoids that are in the plant. So again, it's really popular right now to say, yeah, CBD, that's what we need to legalize. Many states, many politicians are jumping on board on this issue, but it doesn't tell the whole story. It's the cannabis plant, and it's all of what the cannabis plant is. Then when you take CBD oil, or you just take THC, or you put them together, now you've got direct competition to all the legal prescription painkillers that are out there. And legal prescription painkillers kill statistically 100,000 people a year. Because of the legalization of marijuana, we are now, for the first time, going to actually get to see some documented cases of death. I'm sure there have been people that have died as a result of marijuana, but you know what? Not one documented case that has happened. But that is something that is going to be very sensational. It'll be headlines across the country when we have our first recorded death because of marijuana overdose, and it's coming, but keep in mind, this compares with 100,000 people year in, year out that die from legal prescription drugs. Back to the medical side of this, when you look at antidepressants, and I'm always slain by the antidepressant advertisements on television that say, if you feel like you're going to commit suicide, quit using this drug immediately. What, antidepressant that causes suicidal? I'm sorry, I don't see the connection. Marijuana, cannabis, THC, direct competition to all these antidepressants. Post-traumatic stress syndrome. Cannabis, this is the best way to address that. It's real, and it's exciting. It's real, and it's exciting, and it's going to make a difference. And back to my prediction, 20 years from now, 20% of all pharmaceuticals end up to be cannabis-based. Right now, what the federal government could do to change things in a really big way would simply be to change the designation of marijuana as a Class 1 narcotic to just descheduling it completely. That would be a gigantic step. It's something that Obama could do tomorrow. He's not going to do it tomorrow, but it is something that he can. And individual states can also undertake this initiative. And it's my understanding that Washington State will have some of those initiatives going forward. Politicians need to get on board with the issue of legalizing marijuana. Think of all the issues that we face in our lives. Think of every single issue that we face. And when you think of, let's take marriage equality, all right? What, 60% plus of Americans support marriage equality? When you look at the whole universe of politicians, you know, let's say 45% of the universe of politicians support marriage equality, or 50, whatever. Take bombing Iraq. When it comes to politicians, I guess it's always safe ground to bomb. So probably 100% of politicians at the end of the day want to drop bombs, but Americans, maybe it's 60% against, 40% for, but the point is, there's always a corollary between public opinion and politicians that runs pretty close, except for marijuana. And in the case of marijuana, I was introduced a couple of years ago, having made 24 trips to Colorado to see that initiative get passed. But having made 24 trips to Colorado to see that initiative get passed to legalize marijuana in Colorado, I was introduced one evening as, I want to introduce now Governor Johnson. And there's good news, bad news when it comes to Governor Johnson. The good news is that Governor Johnson is the highest ranking public official ever to advocate on the part of legalizing marijuana. The bad news is that Governor Johnson is still the highest ranking public official to ever advocate for the legalization of marijuana. And that exists today. 56% of Americans support legalizing marijuana, and at the gubernatorial level, at the U.S. Congress level, House of Representatives and Senate, zero. Zero. There is no other disconnect in our entire country like that disconnect. So we've got to keep up the pressure on politicians. And believe me, at some point, literally overnight, 45% of politicians will support legalizing marijuana. And actually, they've always been there. If you just listen to what they had to say, they've always been there. Well, keep up the pressure, because this really does need to happen. We've all worked really, really hard to make this happen. And I applaud all of you for what you've done in this movement. We've all worked hard. We've gotten to this point. And then personally, I'd just like to end on the fact that I am really excited by the opportunity that I have to be president and CEO of Cannabis Sativa and our products. If this isn't the coolest thing in the world, is that not cool or what? A product of higher consciousness. And so for me, this is making the world a better place. And for me, this is having a ball, an absolute ball. Because if you can change things for the better and have fun doing it, there's nothing more in life than enjoying what it is that you do. So, with that, do I have any questions, comments, or insults on the part of any of you? Well, what exists is that because of all our treaties and alliances, is that the United States, if you legalize marijuana, the United States can break off trade with you as a country. Has the ability to do that. Nobody's bucked that. Nobody's given that a try, because we might just, politically, we could just do it, and that's what be our leaders that do that. Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, this is the hypocrisy. You just got to have a smile on your face when you ask the question, because it's so ridiculous. And of course, nothing is more ridiculous, or has been more ridiculous, than the war on drugs. So the question is, well, Israel has taken a lead role in all this research and development. Why can't we garner what they've already, where they've already gotten to? Absolutely right. I mean, just right on. Now we're back to just how silly this whole thing is, and the fact that that should be our starting point. Of course, nobody are addressing these issues, because it is a Class 1 narcotic, according to the federal government, in all 50 states. So this is the issue, and it needs to be resolved. Another issue going forward that will get resolved is, right now 24 states have medicinal marijuana. Well, in every single state where there's medicinal marijuana, in the 2 states where there's recreational marijuana, all the marijuana sold, all the marijuana cannabis products sold in those states have to be produced and manufactured in those states. Well, that's where Washington State should get a leg up, because you've taken the initiative to get where you're at right now. And regardless of how it turns out, Washington State and Colorado both are going to have a lead on the rest of the earlier states that legalize are going to have a lead, because let me predict that there will be legislation that will allow for transfer of products and technology, and then back to research and the research and development that does need to take place. And I make myself available nationally also to be a spokesperson for these kinds of things happening, because it's what needs to happen. I mean, it just makes sense. There's no, I mean, we're on the cutting edge here. Washington State is obviously on the cutting edge here, but we have a long way to go. And let's start looking ahead. Let's start looking at where the puck should be, not where it's at right now.
Medical marijuana program started in California, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's interesting if you talk just a little bit about how a small state like New Mexico may have become an early medical marijuana state.
Well, from what I've been able, I mean, I have the same question being California taking the lead when it comes to medical marijuana. I do believe that California really took the lead when it came to medical marijuana, although New Mexico may have been before that. But it was a law that passed that was so restrictive that it was absolutely, it was a useless law. It was impossible to implement, because you had to use marijuana grown in government facilities, and there was no marijuana being grown in any government facility. I mean, something like that. Moving forward, I think California, 2016, it's on the ballot. I expect it to pass. My understanding is that it is on the ballot in Oregon this fall. My understanding is that it's on the ballot in Alaska, that it will pass in Alaska. So, you know, Alaska, very, very small marketplace, certainly, but it's a state, and it goes down as another state. It can't be going unnoticed by the entire country that every plane headed to Denver, and I'm going to say Denver and not Seattle because you know, you've just rolled on to the implementation part of the 502, and it's got some bumps. So Colorado's been at it a bit longer, but it can't go unnoticed that every plane headed out to Denver for the weekend is filled up with people that are going out there to chill out.
Medical, can't smoke it, is what I'm saying, because of the cannabinoids and the scientific TV shows and showing the children.
Well, the question being the new medical marijuana states that are coming on board are not allowing it to be smoked. I hate to see government making those kinds of decisions, and having been governor of New Mexico, I would have never signed on to seeing the government make that happen. But I think what the government is trying to do is what they're trying to do, and they should never try and do this, but they're trying to reflect what is a reality, and that is people have an aversion to smoking. And that the future, I think, really lies in edible. In our case, high is all about lozenge. It's about consuming it orally as a sublingual, suck on it. My experience with the high lozenge for the first time were two things. One is, why would anybody smoke marijuana given this as an alternative? And then number two, just that it is very, very, very pleasant. So I wish government wasn't stepping in the way and saying you can't smoke it, you gotta suck on it. I didn't pass that legislation. I would have never passed it, but for high anyway, for a while, that'll probably be a good thing. Anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you.